Welcome back. We are in the middle of a passage that can only be understood through the Spirit, through the example that Messiah gives us. What the Zohar is like that window that's at the top of the ark that lets in this little bit of light into a very dark place, almost like a coffin, is like what the ark was, to allow it to be a place of preservation of life instead of a place of just darkness. So we ask in the name of Yahushua to give us insight, understanding into these words of the Torah, to bring it to light to us. And they who are wise shall shine like the cantillation marks that the letters and the vowels follow. They move along like soldiers following their king. The letters are the body, and the vowels are the aspect of their spirit, and they all follow their intonations and attain their existence. When the tune of the cantillation marks travel along, the letters and vowels march in step with it. When the tune stops, they stop as well. So that second Torah that Moses wrote on just a dead animal skin, it doesn't have all the vowel markings. So we wouldn't know how to apply it without a living Torah scroll who gives voice to these letters. And this puts it back in context of what we're learning with this Aleph Tav being this feminine aspect. That's all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And Messiah says he's the Aleph Tav. And then you can combine Aleph Tav with the first letter of Hashemayim, and that Hey becomes you. So Bereshith bara Elohim Atah Shemayim. In the source, he created gods, you, heaven, Ve'et, the earth. Welcome back. We are in the middle. The Hey is what makes the direct object definite. So the Aleph Tav would not be there unless that direct object was definite. So it might be a Hey or it might be somebody's name. But we were discussing previously that the Aleph Tav, whatever Messiah is in, whatever God is in, that makes it be something that's lasting. That's like something that's decreed beforehand. That's kind of like the script that is given to us. That's that important thing. And the rest things just kind of, God doesn't pay that much attention to, and it just kind of disintegrates wherever. So the Hey is like the breath and the soul, like all five soul levels, including that highest one, the Akeda, Messiah. So it's giving breath into that, like God is breathing into that situation, that object, that person, where his will is being done. So in other words, we can't just have a dead Torah scroll. We need a living example. We need life to shine on that. Somebody who is living. This is a Torah scroll. And not only do they give voice, because previously it was saying that there was, we'll have to go back, the heavens was the voice, and then there's an utterance. So it's like this maybe this like unspeakable aspect where like you wouldn't even know how to say the Hebrew letters. It's a voice, but it's not heard, and so it needs to be given utterance, and that's more the female aspect that can kind of explain the unexplainable, and these two need to go together. You give them all life. Messiah gives that living water we pass that on. So we're the vessels. And so you need the Aleph Tav, the letters, and then you need that spirit, the Bina above connected with the kingdom below. This is the two places of the Shekinah. That's that fivefold soul that is speaking through you. So it's the letters plus that hey makes you. And the words, and they who are wise shall shine, allude to the letters and the vowels that shine. And the brightness alludes to the tune of the cantillation marks. The firmament alludes to the expansion of the tune, namely to those intonations that flow and expand along as the tune flows. And they who turn many to righteousness alludes to the music of the cantillation marks that bring the journeying to a pause and enable the meaning of the words to be heard clearly. So this is the end goal of somebody who is wise, who is the you, who's explaining it with the letters and the spirit, in order to convey righteousness, to teach them to connect to Hashem, to bring understanding to the Torah in a way that they can apply it, that will bring to righteousness, to connect to the above, to Hashem. The words shall shine allude to the letters and the vowels that shine as one along the journeys through concealed paths. Everything expands from this. And they who are wise, maskalim, shall shine like the brightness of the firmament upon the pillars and sockets of that palanquin. And they who are wise are themselves the supernal pillars and sockets, who observe intelligently to bestow on that palanquin and its sockets all that is needed to sustain it. The pillars are Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. The sockets are Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. The secret is hidden, as you say. Blessed is he that considers maskil, compared with maskilim, the wise, the poor. Maskil is Zer Anpin, and the poor is his female principle. And he receives the brightness for the sake of the poor who needs it. The supernal six extremities of Zer Anpin shall shine, for they do not shine or illuminate. If they do not shine or illuminate, they will not be able to study the palanquin and determine what is necessary for its restoration. Were it not for the need of establishing that palanquin, they would not have received any of that light of brightness. These are palanquin. So if I was just studying on my own, I might not have as well of a understanding, but Hashem says, open your mouth and I will fill it. So understanding that it's not me, it's the spirit that's in me when I'm willing, then if there's somebody who has need to hear something, because I'm a willing vessel, the spirit could flow through me to the person who needs to receive. So I could say something specifically, it could come to my mind to say stuff that I wouldn't have said otherwise because there's somebody who needs to hear that. If you are a leader of anybody, then you could be a pillar with its socket. And the base there is the palanquin that also has its sockets. So your aim as the Zer Anpin, with those six attributes of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, is to allow the light to travel through you to the vessel that needs to receive it, which would be like the kingdom. If you have anything in your hand, if you have any light, then that is not for you ultimately, though it comes to you first. Your job now, and the reason why you have it, is so that you can give that because there's somebody who needs it. And they shine like the brightness of the firmament that rest upon they who are wise, of whom it is written, and over the heads of the living creatures was like the likeness of a firmament, like the color of the terrible ice. This is the brightness of the firmament, which shines upon the entire Zer Anpin, which is called the Torah. The brightness shines upon the heads of that living creature that is called the palanquin. These heads, which are the pillars and sockets of Zer Anpin, who are wise, constantly shine and look on that firmament to receive the light that emanates from there. This also is the light of Zer Anpin in its entirety, which is called Torah. It shines forever and never stops. If they are wise, then they have Chakmah. This is Bereshith. This is what God created with. And it would include all the letters. This is Torah. This is what wisdom is. If they give voice to the letters in such a way that the palanquin receives it, then all of the earth now has become a chariot, a vessel for God. They've brought that light to that lowest Sephirot. And the earth was without form and void. The term was is exact in that it implies the earth's previous state during which snow was mixed inside water. The act of the snow forming inside the water resulted in a foul substance, and afterward a mighty fire beat upon it, and refuse was formed inside it. It then conceived and became without form. The place where at first there was only filth has become now a nest of refuse that is described as without form. It went through 4 stages until it became tohu. First, the light turned into water, then water turned into snow, then snow turned into refuse with the infliction of the fire, and finally the refuse over time became sufficiently distinguishable to be called without form. The words "and void" refer to the refined matter that emerged from the refuse and was set there. Darkness is the secret of the powerful fire, and this darkness hovers above the formlessness over that refuse and is structured from it. In other words, darkness does not mean only the absence of light, that is emptiness, but rather the aspect that produces emptiness. Like a strong fire that burns and consumes everything it touches and leaves emptiness in its place. The reason why it is called darkness and not fire is that the burning force is not from the fire itself, but from the refuse, which is without form, over which it hovers and from which it receives. The way I see this is that, like, God's a consuming fire. It doesn't mean he'd be literally like fire that we know it. It means that if there's any kind of evil, he's going to instantly just consume it. So it's this consumption that would need bounds, or else all of us wouldn't exist. And then what's actually burning then is not the fire like we would think of, but these particles or whatever is there, this void. And that reminds me of like the place of Gehenna, where not just your soul goes, but your body as well, which means as long as your soul inside your body, you can't die. So it's just constantly burning, because it's this, as long as the soul is still in there, then it's just this constant burning. What I like about this order here is that it shows that light has always existed. So he was just calling the light out to kind of manifest. So everything probably comes from light, this illumination, like the letters, the speech, and then it it turns into water. I don't know if there's any way we can picture that like condensation, because that's not, it's, light is actually turning into water here, but there is a connection there with light and water. And then it becomes cold, so water would turn into snow. And so it reminds me of first the earth is standing in the water, out of the water, and then it's speaking of a future judgment. So what comes first is the water that's just like trying to renew and cleanse, and then what the fire does is it burns, like you had this time to refine, and then it burns whatever else hasn't been refined yet until only the essence of God remains. Something that went through this process wouldn't have any kind of form to it. It would remind me of like the destruction of Babylon, I think it was, that becomes a dwelling place of demons and every evil spirit and dragons and stuff. And so I think we kind of see this maybe like with the darkness being there, but it's like this place where you wouldn't think God would dwell. So it's just this waste kind of filthy place would be the void. But then yet I think actually before I was thinking tohu and bohu might be synonyms, but they're more like heaven and earth, like they're just kind of opposites of each other, because now I'm finding out that bohu is more like there is actually DNA in there, there is structure, it's just unseen. So God sees what he can do with this, the bohu that he is in it, those stones. And wind, also spirit, is what this word can mean, from Elohim, alludes to the spirit of holiness that proceeded from living Elohim and moved over the surface of the waters. This means that after this wind blew, a thin layer from the refuse was refined, just as the filth flies off and away. I think Earth was probably tohu and bohu, as in there was no spirit in there. And so in the heavens, like these other planets and things, I think there is spirit in there. And actually, I think everywhere really equally has spirit of God. Like it depends on the vessel of how that's expressed. So humans can express this intelligently, but nonetheless, all of creation is groaning, and it can't be expressed into words, but like desiring for things to go right, because everything actually, because that spirit that is within it actually wants God's will to be done. It's just that we're so weak and lazy or something like this, that is why we don't attain to that. But ultimately, like within us, that spirit of God is always groaning within all of creation, desiring for God's will to be done, and that's what kind of makes it Elohim. It's like the body, the expression of God. And so perhaps in this state of Genesis 1-2, it didn't even have like God dwelling in there. Perhaps like the spirit is above the waters. So it's just a thought, because I don't know. Obviously, God is still everywhere, I would believe, but it's so waste without any kind of definition. And what Elohim is like nature and stuff, so it was so far removed still from nature that it had potential to become nature, but it wasn't really nature. And so like the spirit is kind of outside the body, is how I'm seeing it. As another thought though, since it continues to exist, then that means that God's spirit is in there in some way. So you wonder if God's spirit was like in there while I was going through that cleansing and the fire and things, like that should be what was enabling it to continue to burn. And did the spirit just then kind of leave that body, that whatever earth was, to then begin hovering over the surface of the waters? The other thought is that the Shekinah can be in multiple places at once, right? So it's probably like it's with the Bina and with the kingdom, and like we can all be indwelt multiple places. So in some form, like I'd ask the question, was the spirit kind of in that substance of earth suffering with it, or had it like left just then? It does say that this spirit proceeded from the living Elohim. I don't know if that's a specific term that refers to like Bina or something, but I do know that generally the Zohar is saying that Elohim is like nature. It has to do with physicality. So what other physicality would it have proceeded from? In this manner it was refined, covered, and purified over and over again until the foulness was left without any filth. When this formlessness was refined and purified, a great and strong wind rent the mountains and broke the rocks. Then it emerged like the wind that Elijah saw. The void was refined and purified, and noise came from it, as it is written, and after the wind an earthquake, also noise. When the darkness was refined, fire was then included in its secret, as it is written, and after the earthquake a fire. The wind was refined, and a still small voice was included within it. All of these things, says a noise came from it. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The God of glory thundereth. The Lord is upon many waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful, and the voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars. Yea, the Lord breaketh the cedars of Lebanon. He maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young unicorn. The voice of the Lord divideth the flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness. The Lord shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord maketh the hinds to calf, and discovereth the forest. And in his temple doth every one speak of his glory. The Lord sitteth upon the flood, yea, the Lord sitteth king forever. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. So we had a great and strong wind, and Hashem wasn't in there. So I guess like when it thunders, it can like not be actual words. That's called the voice of God. So first there's this wind, and then an earthquake, and so there was light and water, then ice and fire. But it's supposed to be this great noise, right? That kind of like a big bang that makes atoms and things, such a great quaking. But Hashem's not in this. It's his voice, but then there's like this still small voice, that what he's really after is for that light to come forth. The still small voice, since they're talking about Elijah, who Elijah is he prepares the way for Messiah, for that light that's set aside for the righteous, which we learn about in the next verse, I believe. Formlessness has neither color nor shape, and it is not included within the secret of shape at all. Although it may appear to have form, when we look closely, it loses all form. Everything has a garment to wear except formlessness. Void already has an image and a shape. The stones immersed inside the engraving of formlessness. When the stones emerge from within the engraving in which they were immersed, so it's like a void, right? A shape of darkness, like a demon kind of thing. And now the stones are like, that's the imprint that now needs to be filled. So the stones aren't actually stones, they're just like a mold, maybe. They draw down benefit to this world in the form of a garment. They draw goodness down to the world, that is, straight light, and force the returning light up so that the straight light is enclosed. This is known as shaping. These stones are hollow and viscous because they are suspended in the air. At times, they are suspended in the air because they rise up and out of there from within the engraving of formlessness. At other times, such as cloudy days, they hide and raise water from the abyss to replenish formlessness. This is when there is joy and folly, because formlessness has expanded all over the world. What I picture here is like we have this dimension that is like mixed in with ours, and like these pictures of the sky kind of glitching a little bit maybe, and like a UFO comes out. Darkness is a black fire that is strong in color because no other color can change black. It is also a red fire that is strong in its appearance, as red is the most noticeable color. It is a green fire, which is solid in form, as all forms reach perfection by the green color. And it is a white fire, which is the basis of all other colors. Darkness is strong because it contains all kinds of fires, and it attacks the formlessness. Darkness is a fire that consists of foul colors, and it is usually not a dark fire, except when it attacks the formlessness. This is the secret of the verse, "His eyes were dim, so that he could not see. He called Esau." The face of evil is darkness. So Isaac, who was kind to evil, to Esau, was then called darkness, as he rested upon it, so that he may attack it. If you look at darkness long enough, it could blind you. And I think of darkness as like demons, like the spirits that appear as black to people, but they could also appear like even white. So what they'll do is they'll like attach to your soul. They need something physical to attach to, and it would like dirty your body, dirty your soul. And my suspicion is that generally, like if they're not coming from a human soul, like the demons that came out of the intermingling, is it's just these expressions of like vengeance, some kind of like a negative kind of energy, and it would just be like this one negative energy that wants to like feed or attach to something. Isaac is supposed to be Gevurah, which is even a form of darkness. So Isaac is darkness, and then when it says it may attack it, is like this darkness wants to attack that darkness. It's almost like you have to have some darkness in order to battle the darkness. But it's that wind from Elohim that intervenes to alter courses, which could have been a negative result otherwise. This is like the voice of Rachel, who's guiding Jacob to do what is necessary in the situation. But this takes us to the 30-minute mark, so we'll try to pick up around here next time. Thanks for joining, and I pray you are blessed.